What's up YouTube? It's Okie Dokie, and today I'm going to be showing you guys some loadouts that completely change the look and feel of the characters in Team Fortress 2. And these items are going to mostly be cheap items, but a couple of these are just over a key or two, so just keep that in mind as the prices for these items will vary a little bit, but for the most part I tried to choose pretty affordable items. I really love making unique loadouts for my characters and really enjoy pushing the boundaries of the game's character customization options. I really like testing and seeing how different hats kind of clip together and make really interesting combinations, but without further ado, let's jump right into the video. First up, we have the Scout, and I kind of went for a Tomb Raider treasure hunter type top secret facility infiltrator that's not afraid to take risks to get the treasure. And for this loadout, we're rocking the Orion's Belt, the Hunter in Darkness, and the Jungle Jersey. Now, I really love how the Orion's Belt kind of looks like he has these straps and the compartments around his legs to kind of keep all of his weapons and his different things that he finds along the way. And the Hunter in Darkness kind of complements that look as well, as he has that headset and the goggles on top of his backwards baseball cap. And the Jungle Jersey kind of just ties this all together with that kind of a tougher jacket look and that dark long sleeve shirt in the middle. It just ties the look together really well, and I'm really happy with how this loadout turned out. And so that was for the Scout. Moving on to the next loadout, we are dealing with the Soldier. And for the Soldier, I kind of went for a skull monster look that changes mostly the head region's look, but I chose these three items mainly, and those items are the Caped Crusader, the Mistaken Movember, and the Helmet. Now, I have used this loadout in the past, except I didn't use the cape, and I ended up using the Cold Front Curb Stompers, and you could switch those out, essentially, but I chose these three items mainly. What's really cool about the Helmet and the Mistaken Movember is if you paint both of those the particularly drab tincture, it actually makes it look almost like a skull, and especially the Mistaken Movember, it looks like that bottom jawline, and it just looks really cool when you combine it with the helmet. And it looks really scary with the spikes on top of the helmet, and this looks like a guy who you just do not want to mess with, and he's going to be sure to get the job done. And so that was the Soldier. Next up, we have the Pyro, and for this look, I kind of wanted to create a pyromaniac who looks like he works for an evil boss kind of guarding his outpost in a far out facility. For these three items, I chose the Sub-Zero suit, the Pyromancer's hood, and the Firefly. Now, I really like how the Pyromancer's hood clips very well with the Sub-Zero suit, and these two items look really well together, especially with that Firefly. And I really love the paint choices that I chose here, and so for the Firefly, I chose the Bitter Taste of Defeat and Lime paint, but you could also swap it out with the indubitably green. God, I can't pronounce these paints. You can swap it out with a green paint or an orange paint, but I personally really like the Bitter Taste of Defeat and Lime painted on this Firefly. And so this Pyro looks really menacing, and he just looks really cool in my opinion. And so these three cosmetics work very well together, and I'm really happy with how the Pyro turned out on this one. Next up, we have the Demoman, and so for this one, I kind of went for a robotic bounty hunter mercenary type look. I chose the Hood of Sorrows, the Virtual Viewfinder, and the Dark Age Defender. Now, the Hood of Sorrows is a little bit pricey. I believe it's just over a key, but when you combine it with the Virtual Viewfinder, I think it looks amazing. He looks just like one of those robot droids that is just not going to be afraid to take its target out. It kind of reminds me of IG-88 a little bit, but that's just me. But these three look really well together, and I am very happy with how they turned out. And the Dark Age Defender adds that kind of look that strikes fear into his opponents and makes them want to back off and not mess around with him. So that was the Demoman. Moving on to the Heavy, we're looking at a huge towering experimental soldier who's gonna definitely put a stop to infiltrators like the Scout. And for this loadout, I just chose these three cosmetics, the Die Regime Panzerung, the Mad Mask, and the Polar Bear. And Die Regime Panzerung looks really well with the Mad Mask, and they both kind of add that Mad Max look to it, and it definitely looks really industrial, and I can't imagine how heavy this would be on the Heavy, as it looks like it's just made out of solid metal, and you know, the Heavy is strong enough to lift it up, but oh my goodness, this just adds another level of insanity to this loadout. When you paint the Mad Mask after 8, it just kind of adds a nicer little shadow to it. You don't necessarily have to, but when you paint the Polar Bear after 8 or distinctive lack of hue, it really makes the loadout kind of tie together with that dark metallic look to it. That was the heavy, and so I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Next up, we have the Engineer, and for this loadout, he looks kind of just like a scientist who's really experimented with biomechanical engineering and is just kind of the brains behind the team's operations. And so for this loadout, I chose 3 cosmetics in particular, actually 4 if you include the Gunslinger. That's not really a cosmetic, but it just kind of ties the look together. So we have the virtual reality headset, the Viking braider, and the Dogfighter. And I painted the Viking braider Radian Conager Brown. And this kind of just changes the look up a little bit because I feel like the Engineer looks a little wimpy without any facial hair, and this is definitely not a wimpy beard. This is that kind of Viking look, and he kind of reminds me of Barrack from Paladins a little bit, but with this loadout, it looks like he's just experimented on himself and has hacked his body and added enhanced eyesight, hearing, and can do a lot more with his arm with his Gunslinger installed. And so I'm really impressed with this loadout, and it just looks like this guy is tough and you don't want to mess with him, but at the same time, he's also the brains behind the operation. Next up, we have the Medic, and for this loadout, I kind of chose a knightly medic who's always on the battlefield and pretty much always ready to give his teammates the help they need and is ready to keep them revived. And this loadout kind of looks like it's straight out of Star Wars as well, like the Demoman. For this loadout, I chose the Berliner's Bucket Helm, the Medimask, and the Medical Monarch. And for the Medimask, I painted it Australian gold, and it looks really well with that sort of gold metal outline on the medic's hat and also his jacket right here. I know exactly what you guys are thinking. Please don't say it. It took me a long time to make this loadout, and I did not know of a certain YouTuber who apparently had 2 out of 3 of these cosmetics as his main loadout. So yeah, that's that. But this loadout I love in particular because all of the colors just tie together, and it just looks really unique and completely changes the look of the medic as we know him. And it looks really well if you use a gold bot killer Medigun or any of those with the gold bot killer head on it. It just looks really cool and ties the whole look together dramatically. Next up, we have the Sniper, and I kind of wanted to create a dark and edgy hunter who's pretty much a man of few words, and you're definitely going to be afraid to even glance at, let alone confront verbally. And for this loadout, we have 3 items, which include the Bruiser's Bandana, the Bedouin Bandana, and also the Down Under Duster. Now, these 3 cosmetics work very well because they all sort of go for that dark, hooded look. And the Bedouin Bandana is a little bit more expensive, but it definitely ties the look together wonderfully. And if you use the clean style on the Bruiser's Bandana, it looks especially well. And if you combine all of these items with the Machina, it looks even better. It just really adds and enforces that sort of other game-like aspect to this loadout. And I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Last but not least, we have the Spy, and I sort of went for a robotic base infiltrator who can pretty much hack into any system and bypass security. Now, this guy looks a bit like a bit of a mystery, and you're not quite sure if you can trust him or not. But for this loadout, I went with the Nano Balaclava, the Double Cross Comm, and the Cutthroat Concierge. And you can essentially swap out the Cutthroat Concierge with the Deus specs, but in particular, I really like the look of the Cutthroat Concierge painted Australian gold. It adds that sort of bit of color pop to it, and it just looks really well when you paint the Double Cross Comm after 8 or a distinctive lack of hue, and same with the Nano Balaclava to get rid of those red accents and kind of reinforce that black and dark look to it. So that would be a little bit expensive to use both of those paints, but if you were to have those lying around, or if you really like the look of this, I would say it's definitely worth it. So these 3 items, along with the paints that I mentioned, they look really well together. And if you're feeling extra special, you could use a Festive Ambassador to kind of tie that dark look to it. And I'm just a really huge fan of how this one turned out. So hopefully you guys really liked these loadouts. In my opinion, I feel like the TF2 loadouts can get kind of bland after a while, and there's not really much that you can do to kind of freshen up their looks a bit, but If you play around with loadout.tf, you can definitely find some awesome combinations. And if you guys just think outside of the box, I bet you guys can create some really awesome combinations. And I can't wait to see what you guys create. So drop a comment down below and let me know what kind of combinations you guys have discovered. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification icon so that you can be alerted whenever I create any new content, which has been a lot more lately because it's kind of becoming the end of summer and I kind of just want to put out as many videos as I can before school starts again. And also I'm doing my all-class TF2 Unusual giveaway at 500 subscribers, so all you have to do is subscribe and turn on the notifications and you'll automatically be entered. And so be sure to stick around for that and more of my videos in the future. I'm Okie Dokie, and until next time, bye-bye. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rave Spy. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, buddy.